I do that screen off my laptop, but I do the stream off of back here. You're going to have to sit with Travis to learn it. He'll teach you. All right, well, we're continuing our lesson from last week. Yes, Ed won that one. So how did the Babylonians treat the Israelites? Yep. Everybody remembered that. Who remembered the memory verse? Oh, go ahead. Very good. That was Sandy. So, guys, not to pressure you, but there's 2 women that memorize it and not 1 man yet. It's all right. Scott will prove me wrong. Well, no, you're not. You're gone for a couple weeks. There'll probably be a new one when you come back. Yeah. If I could get him to read them, he'd memorize them. All right, so we're going to continue our lesson. We're going to start off with God's justice. It should be after our little worksheet we did last week. God is faithful, and he executed his judgment he had promised through Jeremiah. But there was still hope. A remnant survived, and God would use that remnant to restore Israel and bring forth the Messiah. We will start out today in 2 Chronicles 36, the first 21 verses. The passage we examined last week was 2 Kings. This is the parallel passage in Chronicles. So you have to put your memory hats on to remember 2 Kings. So I'll read the first 21 verses. The people of the land took Josiah, the son of Joahaz, the son of Josiah, and made him king in his father's place in Jerusalem. Joahaz was 23 years old when he began to reign. He reigned 3 months in Jerusalem. Then the king of Egypt deposed him in Jerusalem and laid on the land a tribute of 100 talents of silver and a talent of gold. And the king of Egypt made Eliakim, his brother, king over Judah and Jerusalem, and changed his name to Jehoiakim. But Necho took Joahaz, his brother, and carried him to Egypt. Jehoiakim was 25 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 11 years in Jerusalem. He did what was evil in the sight of the Lord. It's blowing my papers away. Where was I? He did what was evil in the sight of the Lord his God. Against him came Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, and bound him in chains to take him to Babylon. Nebuchadnezzar also carried part of the vessels of the house of the Lord to Babylon and put them in his palace in Babylon. Now the rest of the acts of Jehoiakim and the abominations that he did, and what was found against him, behold, they are written in the books of the kings of Israel and Judah. And Jehoiachin, his son, reigned in his place. Jehoiachin was 18 years old when he became king, and he reigned 3 months and 10 days in Jerusalem. He did what was evil in sight of the Lord. Yeah. Yep. What Bible do you have? NIV. KJV. Okay, so let's deal with that. Larry says, the King James says 8 years old. Most of the Hebrew translations and ancient texts say he's 8 years old. The others say he's 18. Which is he? It's probably a scribe error that says 8 years old. They forgot the teen or however they do it back then. Because he has wives. Most 8-year-olds don't have wives. So he has wives. So yeah, he's probably 18. You should have a footnote there for that verse that says some of the Hebrew says 8, and most of the Greek and the other ancient texts you say 18. Yeah. ESV says 18, KJV and some of the others still say 8. But if they say 8 there, 2 Kings that we studied last week says 18. We've seen the young ones go. Yeah. So Jehoiakim was 18 years old. See, mine's up on the screen, ain't it? Note 2. Septuagint compared to 2 Kings 24:8. Most Hebrew manuscripts say 8. See, most Bibles have a little subtext like that to explain it to you. Yeah.
I can read.
Okay. And he reigned 3 months and 10 days in Jerusalem, and he did what was evil in the sight of the Lord. In the spring of the year, King Nebuchadnezzar sent and brought him to Babylon with the precious vessels of the house of the Lord, and made his brother Zedekiah king over Judah and Jerusalem. Zedekiah was 21 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 11 years in Jerusalem. He did what was evil in the sight of the Lord. He did not humble himself before Jeremiah the prophet, who spoke from the mouth of the Lord. He also rebelled against King Nebuchadnezzar, who had made him swear by God. He stiffened his neck and hardened his heart against turning to the Lord, the God of Israel. All of the officers of the priest and the people likewise were exceedingly unfaithful, following all the abominations of the nations. And they polluted the house of the Lord that he had made holy in Jerusalem. The Lord, the God of their fathers, sent persistently to them by the messengers because he had compassion on his people and on his dwelling place. But they kept mocking the messengers of God, despising his words and scoffing at his prophets, until the wrath of the Lord rose against his people, until there was no remedy. Therefore he brought up against them the king of the Chaldeans, who killed their young men with the sword in the house of their sanctuary, and had no compassion on young men or virgin, old men or aged. He gave them all into his hand, and all the vessels of the house of God, great and small, and the treasures of the house of the Lord, and the treasures of the kings and of the princes, all these he brought to Babylon. And they burned the house of God, and broke down the walls of Jerusalem, and burned all its palaces with fire, and destroyed all the precious vessels. He took into exile in Babylon those who had escaped from the sword, and they became servants to him and to his sons until the establishment of the kingdom of Persia, to fulfill the word of the Lord by the mouth of Jeremiah, until the land had enjoyed its Sabbaths. All the days it lay desolate, it kept Sabbath to fulfill 70 years. So what similarities between this and what we studied last week? The list of the kings. There's not as many time frames. This one's more condensed than the one we studied last week. Doesn't go into depth as much. But in verses 15 and 16, extra information is found that's not in 2 Kings. Those two verses.
All these kings start with a J. Is there something special back then if your name starts with a J?
No. I think, well, remember some of them, the other kings changed. They're like, I don't want to learn your new name, Jehoiakim, so we're going to call you Jehoiakim like your brother. They just changed one letter, made him Jehoiachin. It is. It's hard to remember them. Yep. Get yourself a good audio Bible. That's how I learned to produce, and then I still mess them up.
Oh, you're doing a great job with your pronunciation.
You don't know if I am or not. Exactly. You don't know if I'm pronouncing them right or not. I just make it sound good. So how old was Jehoiachin when he became king? This is Larry's question from earlier. 18. Yeah. King James has 8. And there's a few other ones. I think it's verse 9, Pups. 2 Kings 24:8 says that he is 18, and King James, verse 9 here in 36, says he's 8. How do you reconcile that? Because though you'll get this if you start witnessing to people that actually know the Bible, they'll use this as a contradiction. Here's the same king, same time, 2 different ages. So which one's right? Your Bible's full of error. 2 Chronicles 36:9. If you want to start having the deeper conversations with people that actually know the Bible, you'll be surprised to find there's more people that aren't Christians that know the Bible than there are Christians that know the Bible. They actually study it just to refute it. And this is one of the ones they'll bring up. Here's Jehoiachin. He's 8 years old in 2 Kings, and he's, or 2 Chronicles, and he's 18 in 2 Kings. Well, how do you believe he's 2 ages at the same time? Can't have blind faith, Judy. Blind faith. That's obviously an error somewhere. Huh? Yeah, I already gave it to you earlier. So which one are you going to believe? Is he 8 or 18? You should have a footnote in your Bible. Yeah. So let me find, where's my phone? So flip to 2 Kings 24:15. 24:15. 2 Kings.
Several ancient versions in 17, 24 equals as age as 18.
Mm-hmm. Which is his correct date. So what's verse 15 say? I'll read it. And he carried away Jehoiachin to Babylon, the king's mother, the king's wives, and his officials. How many 8-year-olds do you know that have plural wives? Even in old times, not many. Yeah, I doubted it at 8. Why? Yeah. There is translation discrepancies. You know, we're taking thousands of year old text and turning it into English, and you're taking 1,000-year-old text that was rewritten for years. There wasn't printing presses, so you had scribes writing and writing and writing and writing, and there's a copy, and then writing and writing, and then there's a copy. You're going to have some of those textual errors, none that change the message. Does it matter if he's 8 or 18? Does it change the story at all? Does it change the truthfulness of God's word at all if his age is too different? No. Now, if we had a verse that says Jesus died for our sins, hung on the cross, bore, and then we had one that said Jesus was just a man that died on a cross and it meant nothing, that would be a problem. His age is not a problem. I don't care if he's 24. It doesn't change any of the actual message. It's just an age. But being that he had wives, more than likely the 18 is correct. Sue.
Like you were saying there, he had wives. If he was 18, he could have still had wives because didn't they marry them sometimes like 13?
Yes.
No, so
Yeah, Jewish, think the bar mitzvah, what is that, 13 years old? That's when they are a man. Where they can start getting wives. You know, so 8, they didn't even have their bar mitzvah yet. Not that they did that back then. I don't know how they did it yet, but so 18. But if you want to argue 8, I wouldn't argue. Okay, so he's 8. And he had several wives. Doesn't change the story. Yep. Doesn't change any of the narrative. What do you mean by how did they get away with so many wives?
Women were like, okay, so you have 2 wives, I'll marry you anyway. Like, I don't.
In culture, it was normal back then. Okay, so where we live right now, the women have the most rights and most freedoms that they've ever had in all of human history. Back then, women, not me, you were property. Plain and simple. Even in your own father's house, you didn't get a share of the inheritance because you're going to become property of somebody else. So we finally got it where it's as close to equal as we'll probably ever get it. Because men are still stubborn and hard-headed, but back then, how did they get away with it? They didn't have a choice, Larry. They couldn't say to their husband, no, you're only allowed one, because then he'll divorce you and marry them too. And then you're homeless and helpless and you're done. You starved to death, so you didn't pick the fight. Yeah. That's why when I hear people say that the Bible is a sexist book, I don't understand it. Because you read into the New Testament, in the first century where a women's word didn't even matter in court, the Bible records they're the first ones to find Jesus. Well, their testimony isn't worth 2 cents. So if you're trying to push a lie, say, like people claim, well, Jesus didn't really raise from the dead, they just made it up. If you're going to make up a lie, why would you use 2 people's witness that is worthless? The first 2 people to have been at the tomb would have been Peter and John. You know, because their witness was worth something. But it wasn't. And the Bible records that the women were the first ones there.
If he wants, like, one of them guys want to have a date night with their wife, I'm not gonna say, you know what I mean, but like he says, well, you, with me, like that's what he does. Like he's like, we're taking you out tonight, like.
He did whatever he wanted. If you own 2 cars, do you ask the other car if you can drive this one today? Or do you just go get in whatever car you want and drive? This is how they thought of it back then.
I guess it just seems.
Yeah, the wives had separate tents, and they were both your property, just pick the one you wanted to use today.
I get what he's saying, but
You know, it's odd to our ears because we don't live that way anymore. Well, we try not to. Yeah.
I've actually seen reality shows where they glorify this type of stuff.
America still does it. Who wants to be, or no, what's that? Bachelorette. I'm sorry, when you send 100 bachelor women to meet one rich guy, we're doing the same exact thing. Them 100 women are nothing but property. I don't think, not as much, because they actually have women serving in their military and women serving in their government. They've come up to the newer standard now, too. But when you go into Iran, Iraq, Saudi Arabia, they are still property. They can't even go outside without their head veiled because they can get killed because they don't have the right to, because they don't have any rights.
remember when we had that little series, I can't remember what it's called, but it was these women that escaped.
Yes. What's the name of your book? That Faith on Fire or Fire? Heart Heart of Fire.
Hearts of Fire, right. And how they treated, like the one girl, her father put a hit out on her because she became a Christian.
Yeah. Yep. And I say that all the time. We don't really understand what it means when we say count your costs to become a Christian when Jesus says it, but over there they did. They still do. If a Muslim decides they want to be a Christian, they are dead to their family. That is the best thing that can happen to them. The worst is they can just, by law, kill them. And it's legal. Not here. But from some of the news reports you see on, what is it, Michigan or Wisconsin, that's heavily Muslim right now, it's happening here, you know, and we don't step up and say nothing. Boy, we got way off subject. Okay. No, this one was Larry's. We're blaming Larry on this one. All right, so at verses 15 and 16, we're back to 2 Chronicles 36. What extra information does 2 Chronicles give us that 2 Kings didn't? Verses 15 and 16 in 2 Chronicles is two verses that are not in 2 Kings. That God sent messenger after messenger after messenger. We talk about God's patience, God's love, his kindness. I mean, this is hundreds of years he kept sending people to warn them and warn them. And they did like we do. No big deal. No big deal. God's a God of love.
Was Jeremiah the longest? Well, he was 23 years in one.
Yeah.
Did any other prophet?
Isaiah, I would say, was longer. Or Elijah. Well, he was a pretty long one. Moses, but he had kind of a different role. But he had 40-some years. 41, 42. He wasn't just a prophet. He was also a leader. He was also the one God gave the Ten Commandments to. He was a prophet. But he wasn't warning one generation. He was leading one generation. And why didn't Moses make it into heaven? Or not heaven, sorry, the promised land. Yeah. Nope. No. All because he struck a rock with his staff. That was in the past. Yes, so did I. But God told him, why didn't Moses make the promised land? And it was because God said, say to that rock, and water will come forth. And Moses hit the rock, and water came forth. Yeah, and he was angry with the people at the time, so he just hit it. Well, when I hit the rock, what brings the water out of the rock? Me. I did something, the water came forth. And God said, no, I'm the one bringing the water forth. All you do is say, and I'll bring it. Frustration and disobedience. Yeah. How serious he takes disobedience. Moses, the man he trusted to bring them all out, did not make the promised land because of that. And then we hear ourselves go, it's just a little white lie. It's just a small sin. It's not going to hurt anybody.
I just think it's funny whenever people are always saying, well, he's a good God. He's going to forgive these little
Oh, yeah, he's so loving and caring. Yeah, he's just. Let's remember that first. And we want him to be just. We just don't want to receive his justice. Because his justice means we all what? We all go to hell. We all burn in hell for all eternity. That is justice. We want his grace. But you can't take his justice out of his character, because then he ceases to be God. He was merciful. He didn't, strike him dead at that moment. He let him see it from the other, from the border. But we ask questions like Larry just did, but why wasn't he merciful and just let Moses go in anyhow? What should have happened when he struck the rock? Gone. As soon as you disobey and sin, the wages of sin is death. It's God's grace that every time we do sin, we catch another breath.
And people that ask forgiveness, they have to really mean it, really serious, because God knows when they're.
Yeah, God knows your heart. When you ask for forgiveness, it can't be, let's use alcohol. I got drunk again last night. God forgive me. And then answer the phone and go, yeah, I'm going out tonight with you guys. Straight back to the bar the next day. You didn't mean that forgiveness. You're just trying to get that Jesus get out of hell free card. It says I have to say a prayer, and then all is good. So I'll just keep on sinning that grace may abound. And what's Paul say? Heaven forbid. Yes and no. God hears everything. But so if you want to go with hear as in taking the prayer and answering the prayer and stuff, no. Sinners, God pays no attention. That prayer amounts to nothing. Now, if you're a sinner and you're saved and you sin and you pray, God hears that one. It's different. But to just be a non-believer and pray, God, I'm out of money, God's not listening. You're not one of his children. Yeah, that's why I said yes and no. He hears them all. They hold different weight. Yep. Yep. God answers every prayer. He says no a lot more than we would like. But when God says no at a prayer, it is the exact same answer you would give yourself if you knew the whole story. But we never know the whole story. We're like one string in a tapestry. We can't see the whole picture. So the answer when God says no, it's not unloving, it's because you can't see the whole picture. If you could, you would tell yourself no. You would answer your own prayer you just prayed no. That's where the faith and trust comes in, because there's a lot of times I ask for stuff and thank God he didn't give them to me. But I really wanted them back then. But I couldn't see the whole picture. I didn't need them and they wouldn't have helped me. They would have hindered me. Depends how far you go with that. Is it a sin to pray for stuff that you don't need? No. No, there's nothing wrong with praying for stuff. And part of the time that's correct. If God didn't want you to have it, he'd have canceled it. Other times he'll teach you a lesson. He'll give it to you knowing it's going to be bad for you. But because you didn't listen to everything he told you before, let's walk through it one more time. And he'll let you do something that's not necessarily bad. There's nothing wrong with buying a car. Yeah.
My mom always told me never to pray for money.
Never to pray for money?
Yeah, she didn't pray for money. She said it. I think she didn't say it was a sin, but I was getting the impression she was saying kind of like leading me on that it was a sin to pray for money.
There's nothing wrong with praying for money.
No?
What do you think the homeless person that has no food and everything is praying when they put the cup out? Lord, give me enough money to get a sandwich or a drink or something so I can make it through the next day. Now, if you're praying, Lord, let me hit the Powerball, yeah, that's probably wrong. Because the Powerball's honestly going to do none of you any good. I mean, I was going to say, look at the history of most people hit the Powerball. They're broke within 5 years, in jail, drug addicted. Most people, it does not go well. And there's no need for it. What am I going to do with $100 billion? I was going to say, I'd pay my house off and all that stuff, and then I'd give the rest away because I know what it'll do to me. I'd be in bad shape if you give me $100 billion. I'd have to buy property just to park cars. You know, it's not going to do me any good. See, that's probably what she was talking about. So how did the people of Israel treat those messengers? Laughed and mocked, and they heeded no warning that they gave them. But so why does God send them? Why does God send the messengers to these people? Persistent. Compassion. And a few listen. Yep, and this is God getting them. And then we go out and we get upset when we talk to 100 people and nobody says, tell me about your Jesus. Imagine God talking to all these millions in one country that he gave everything to, and they're going, I mean, we get discouraged too easy. So why did God eventually send Babylon to judge Judah? What's our text say? If you remember, it says there's only one solution left. God's mercy and his grace and his forgiveness has run out. You're at the point where I have one solution left. And that solution is my wrath. Yep. Now Babylon, is Babylon this wonderful God-fearing nation? Nope. But what does this say about them? They are God's punishment. God uses that nation. They are emissaries of God when he sends them to conquer Jerusalem. Iran. Yeah, Iran. Who is the king of the Chaldeans? Trick question. It is. Because you know the answer. Mm-hmm. Who's the king of Babylon? No, it's not Melchizedek. Nebuchadnezzar. Who's the king of the Chaldeans? Nebuchadnezzar. You'll see him use different names for Babylon in here. Chaldeans and Babylon, that's the same. And we talked last week. Why do we know the name Chaldeans? Abraham. He was from Ur of Chaldea. Abraham was called out of Iraq or Iran before it was Babylon, and it was Chaldea. I can. Yes, Judy. I almost. Nope. Yes, Judy. You're right. I didn't. I'm learning. So in the final assault on Jerusalem, how did Babylon treat the Jewish people? Made them slaves. Leveled the place and killed without distinction. It didn't matter if you were a soldier of war, an old man sitting in a house, a woman, or a child. If you came in front of them, they killed you with no distinction. Now, all the articles of the temple, what happens to them? Stolen and taken to Babylon. They'll come up later. Miki Teko something. That's in Daniel. So how long are they going to be carried away for? Why 70? I was going to say, you men know from men's Bible study. Go ahead, you got it, I think.
Because they never rested for the Sabbath, they just kept working.
When God set up the nation of Israel, he set up a series of Sabbaths, right? Every Saturday there was a Sabbath and they had to rest and worship the Lord. Also, every seventh year was a Sabbath year for the fields. Every seventh year you couldn't plant crops. The field needed its year of rest. They had not given it a single year. So God says, you don't want to obey my laws. You've stored up 70 years worth of Sabbath. You're out of the land so the land can have its Sabbath. Crazy. Yep. And they should. Because when God tells us that ground needs a rest every 7 years, he designed it. He would know. So if he's telling you to let it rest, it's only to your benefit. You know, but we think, no, that's a year I'm not going to make any money. Yeah, a lot of them just plant a different crop to pull different nutrients. Yeah. So the way they should do it so that they don't lose a crop is have 7 fields. And, you know, each year you plant 6 and 1 gets the rest. That's how I'd do it. But they didn't even bother that. Yeah, they add chemicals because it's so good for us. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they just add nutrients and this and stuff to it. And then we wonder why people get sick and all these other things pop up because we don't. God says do it this way. We're like, no, we need 1 more year, so we're going to do it this way. We're going to add our own artificials. We did not make it through this again. You're going to see this pattern probably over the next few lessons because we're getting into Daniel. So we will pick, Judy, we'll pick this same lesson up again next week. We might get into the other one, but I don't know. We got 1 of 3 scriptures done today. Huh? That's what I mean. We didn't do Jeremiah 25 or Jeremiah 29 yet, so we're going to. Any questions? Last couple minutes.
Okay, so we start with God's mercy.
We're going to start with God's mercy.
But this is all stuff that we share.
It does, and it is. I'm fair warning. Once we get into Daniel, I'm very long-winded. Yeah. So questions?
I do. No, I thought you might. No.
Ask your question.
Well, this is in Jeremiah. But they talk about the moral law. We have to obey the moral law. God doesn't consider that any worse than any of the other sins.
Well, the moral law would be the 10 Commandments.
What?
It's like the 10 Commandments, the moral law. Like you have to obey that still today, but do you have to obey not wearing a shirt made with 2 different fabrics? That was part of the law for the nation of Israel.
Well, I feel all sins are equal.
They are, and that's all sins fall under the moral law. We don't have to follow the governing law that God gave them. We don't have to,
Well, I for one,
yeah, or the ceremonial. Every time I sin, I don't have to kill a lamb. I don't have to follow that one anymore.
I didn't hear that right.
Every time I sin, I don't have to kill a lamb anymore.
Every time John sinned, he has to kill a man named Larry.
No, a lamb. That's part of the ceremonial law we no longer have to do. Close us in prayer.